Exactly, it is. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Daily Freedom. I'm so excited today to be interviewing again Laura Chattington, and I'm your host Fernando Lopez. For those of you who don't know me, and Laura, welcome back. And what made you get started in all of this?
Hi, Fernando, and thank you so much for having me back. It is so good to be here today, tonight, this afternoon, whatever it is. It's really good to be back because actually I wanted to share with everyone a new project that I have been working on. And actually, when I think about what made me get started, I sort of think back to when, quite a few years ago when I was working on a project and I was in that sort of mode of working really, really, really hard. I was always very dedicated to the job I had and the project that I was working on. And I was running this project it was actually a digital TV company. And I was one of two directors and we were responsible for producing this whole digital TV channel. And I remember I'd get up at like 6 a.m. I'd be at work by 7:30 in the morning. I'd work all day till 7:30 at night. I'd literally be eating this project for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and doing everything I could to make sure this project was on track. And Fernando, when you're sort of really obsessed with your work, right? You're really obsessed with it, and all you're doing is thinking about what's next. Who have I got to talk to next? Who do I need to speak to? What have I got to do? What's the next actions? What am I going to do tomorrow? That was kind of where I was. I was working with this other guy, and his name, I'm going to call him James. He wasn't called James, but I'm going to call him James because I just want to call him James. And he would walk into work at about kind of 10:30 in the morning, and he would sit down, and we were at the same level in the company. He would sit down, he would do a few emails, he'd have a coffee, he'd make a couple of phone calls, he'd get up and he'd sort of wander around the office having a chat with the directors, and he'd go and sit in people's offices and all of that stuff. And those people that you just feel like they never seem to do any work, but no one seems to mind or no one seems to care, and they sort of get away with it. He was kind of like that guy, right? Fast tracks 10 months later, and the company that I was working for was running out of funding. It was a funded sort of tech startup, and it was running out of funding, and they were making redundancies. And I was sort of thinking, well, I'm going to keep my job because I literally run the main project for the whole company. So they've got to keep me on because what are they going to do without me? That was kind of what was going through my head. And I get this diary invite into my calendar from my boss, and he takes me into the office. And when you're sort of going into the boss's office, and I'm sort of thinking, and he says, "I'm really sorry, but I can only keep one of you on, and this guy James has the connections we need in the industry, so we're going to have to let you go." And I was like, yeah, I was like you, Fernando. I was like,
wow.
It's like, have you ever had those conversations with your boss and you're just like, wow. I was like, wow, I feel like I've been cheated. I thought you were going to promote me. I thought you were going to, give me credit for something. And actually, I just watched someone else take my job, and I sort of walked out of that interaction, and I was like furious, and I'd sort of worked my arse off for so long that I was like literally left with 2 months' pay, no job, and what just happened? And actually, it wasn't the first time I found myself in these situations where you kind of go into meetings thinking that you've worked hard and you've done what you needed to do, and you feel like things don't go the way you want them to, and the outcomes aren't the way you want them to, and you end up sort of coming out feeling incompetent and not doing what you wanted to do, kind of thing. And I think at that point in my career, as I was getting older and more experienced, I was like, started questioning, am I good enough? Am I doing my job right? Am I doing something wrong? What is happening that these kind of things are, changing my career path, kind of thing. So I got made redundant just before Christmas from this job. Just before Christmas, I didn't have a job to go to in the new year. I was sort of feeling really, really low. And I was sort of sitting at home thinking, maybe I'm doing something, or maybe I'm not doing something that I should be doing. What am I doing that I should be doing? Or what am I not doing that I should be doing? And I actually sort of dawned on me over that Christmas that I realized what he was doing that I wasn't, right? I realized what he was doing was he was going along, I was there working on the project, but he was actually building relationships. He was having conversations with the people, the senior team in the company, and he was doing all of that. And I realized at that point that actually what was missing from my role in the company was I wasn't communicating and building relationships in the company. And although I was doing my job really well, I wasn't adding that part to my weekly routine. And I decided that I needed to go and work out, so how do you do this, right? How do you go in and communicate and influence, and how do you build those relationships? Because it isn't just down to hard work. So I definitely put the hard work in. It was to do with other stuff, and being able to communicate up to the C-suite, to the senior team, to people that are making those decisions on whether you stay in your job, whether you get promoted, whether you get the pay rise, was kind of like, okay, that's what I need to do. So actually I went trying to keep cram my ears into a couple of minutes. I actually went off and realized that communication and influence were that kind of communication was the missing piece. And I joined Toastmasters, and I was a Toastmaster for 15 years, where you learn to communicate and present, and you also learn how to handle questions on the spot, sort of questions under pressure. I also decided to go back to NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which I'd sort of done in my personal life in my early 20s, but how to use it in the working environment. So I kind of went, got the Toastmasters, got the influence, and then I was really applying that into every role that I had in my career, and ever since then. So I was sort of going from a hardworking professional to a much more strategic professional in the way I went around about my business in the workplace. Because actually, companies give you lots of training, right? They give you lots of training, but they train you to do your job. They train you to do a job. What they don't train you, it's kind of like the unspoken language, is they don't train you to build relationships and communicate and influence within the workplace that you are. And so I sort of went off to just, find all of that. And as I have sort of applied all of those tools and systems at work in the corporate world, in the working world, the other thing that I really noticed was that we don't have loads of time to go off and do lots of training. It was something that I loved doing and I was, passionate to do. But in the workplace, you kind of need something really condensed. You just need the applicable system. You need the tools that are relevant to you. You don't need to go off and spend 15 years learning how to public speak, right, or how to communicate. So that's really where I got to a point where I was distilling down the key tools and systems that professionals need in the workplace to apply this stuff in the workplace so that they can become much more strategic about their careers. And that was kind of where I got to.
Wow. It took an experience like that, being fired, and feeling like you were the most essential person in the company, to learning no, you were not the most essential person in the company, and that doing your job as per the company's policies and procedures it does not ensure that you're going to be with a job if there's a layoff. So what you told me that you came up with a system. What is this system that you have so that people that were in a situation that such as yourself, they can learn from your experience and have a different experience?
Yeah, and you summed it up brilliantly, actually. And being made redundant and again, it was the industry, specifically in the industry as well, in that tech industry where it was sort of boom and bust and funding and and it became very, very apparent to me that you needed other stuff, working hard. Many times we think to progress, we just need to work harder. We need to learn more stuff. We need to get an MBA but actually that isn't what we necessarily need to do. And that sort of working hard professional that I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. And I actually read this great story. I'm going to tell you a really short story about this fly, and it kind of sums it up brilliantly. And if you think there was this fly that was stuck behind a window, when you got a fly on the window and it's like, and you can hear it like bang, 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 and it's desperately trying to, it's putting all the effort, all the work into trying to escape through the window. And sort of a few meters down, there's like this open window where the fly could just go straight out. And I sort of wonder, when I look at my career, how many times I've been thinking, if I can just work harder, if I could, if I just put more time in, if I just do more stuff. But actually, maybe career success isn't working like that. Maybe career success is just a few sharp moves down the window and getting straight out of the window, and then you're free, right? So actually, too often we think about careers as a kind of incremental growth, when actually, if we take the right strategies, if we take the right moves, then you may not have to put more hard work in. Actually, you just need a different system, right? So the system that I've kind of got to, condensing down it is really focused on creating that strategic professional, giving you the access out of the window so that you can get free. And it's in 3 steps. Number 1 is decide. And I know that's a very, very sort of specific thing, but actually strategic professionals are really thinking about the decision that they need to make, yes, but how are they going to get there? What are the systems that they need to get themselves there? How do they accelerate the process? Looking at all the ways of getting that fast escape, getting to that place as quickly as possible. So making that very clear decision to be that strategic professional. So that's the first step. The second step is about communication. And again, lots of the people that I work with are very, very, very competent at what they do, right? They're some of the best at what they do, and they can walk into any meeting and talk about what they do, and they can update you on their work and everything. But as soon as you ask them to talk about themselves, as soon as they have to talk about themselves and put themselves forward and tell other people how good they are at what they do, that is where they feel uncomfortable, and they get uncomfortable. So that step, communicate, is really about how do you communicate with confidence? How can you communicate more strategically? How can you pitch as a strategic professional, so that as a strategic professional, you're putting yourself forward in the interactions that you have, right?
And Laura, what do you think holds people back from doing that already?
Well, I think that what holds people back is it's a number of things, but you kind of you don't kind of realize. I think you almost kind of hold yourself back a bit, right? You almost train yourself to be restricted by what you think is possible. And if you think about what was happening to me when I was working hard, I wasn't sort of looking up in the company. I wasn't looking for opportunities. That kind of working hard professional was right down looking at everything that was going on in the work, but I wasn't looking up and looking at what else should I be doing? What are the relationships I should be building? Who else should I be interacting with? So I think in a way, it's some of the stuff that we tell ourselves that holds us back, right? You must have that experience too.
Of course, yes. My internal dialogue and my old beliefs, is what limits me to my success or lack of success. Is there anything else? Are there any external factors besides the inner dialogue?
Yeah, I mean, I think from an external perspective, you've got your kind of your inner dialogue holding yourself back, and I think when you start changing that dialogue and thinking about, what if I could, what if I could do this? What if I what if I can go in and speak to the CEO about an opportunity? What if it can go and give that presentation to the senior team? And you start shifting your mindset, like you say, that internal dialogue and everything that's going on. And I think from an external perspective, I think it always comes down to things like feeling like you have time, right? I work with a client who she runs she's like a global head of a huge company, a $40 billion company. Every single day is like back to back meetings. And so the idea of taking on anything more for her was like, I don't know if I've got enough time. I don't know whether, I can fit this into my week. But actually, when she started thinking about the opportunities that she's missing because she doesn't have this system in place, you start to find, you realize that it's a matter of priorities, right? It's a matter of priorities, and being able to transform yourself into that more strategic professional, you have to take different skill sets on, and you find the time in the week. So actually, you just adapt from a time perspective, which I think once you make it a priority, once you decide to do it, and it's do it now, you really are able to start getting that momentum in your career, in your week, so that you can change the way that you are and the behave and how you implement every day at work, right?
Yeah, decisions are so powerful. Without decisions, nothing gets done. Specifically, getting a new way of working, or a new salary increase, or changing your title to upgrade your title. So what is next? Do you have anything that you can offer to the listeners and viewers today?
Yeah, so We have a live masterclass. That is the way to experience this. And it's a 4-hour masterclass. It's free. And you just have to go to www.activatemycareerlive.com and register, get your place there. And during that masterclass, you can have the experience and go through the sort of transition of going from a working hard professional where you feel like you're overworked, underpaid, and sort of going through that transition to a strategic professional where you're really looking to upgrade your title and be on your way to upgrading your title within 3 months. So getting that leverage and fast tracking your career.
Wow, that's wonderful. I know I'm getting on that. Thank you, Laura, for coming on and sharing this amazing information with the viewers and listeners today. I know I learned a lot because it just, sometimes learning is remembering. Some of these things I may have heard, the listeners, viewers may have heard, and remembering, and then having someone to be the accountability partner, such as you, Laura, to, take them by the hand and literally have them work with them and crafting, like I remember you working with a group in the past where each person in the group crafted how they would introduce themselves and that going from the old way to the new way, position them in a much more favorable and highly valuable say way to from the higher ups in the company. So I know what you do. It's super valuable. I suggest everyone go to activatemycareerlive.com. That's activatemycareerlive.com. Laura will take care of you. Anything else, Laura, before we close this amazing short laser focused coaching session?
Yeah, no, definitely go and check out the masterclass. And I think it really is focused on professionals who are at a point in their career where they want to take things up to the next level. And I think it's important to realize that if you, and you said it earlier, Fernando, is that if you really want to, once you decide, you need to go and get the systems and the relationships in place to do that. And going to an outside party is always super helpful, especially when you're inside in that career, because I think you get the systems that aren't available to you inside the company, and also the support network and the drive and the motivation that you don't necessarily get inside the company too. So it's a really good benefit on lots of different levels.
Laura, if you could go back in time and when you were in that startup and someone like you, the future you would show up, and would you maybe give 2 scenarios? The part of you that would say, what, I'm the most essential person here, I don't need you, future Laura, who activates mycareerlive.com. So that's 1. 2 is, do I really need this? And yeah, I want to secure my future. Please, what do I need to do? So give me 2 examples. If you could go back in time, see your future self, one would say no to it, yes, and the other you'd say yes to it.
Well, you know what? If I could go back I wish I could go back in time and talk to my hardworking Laura back then, because actually, hardworking Laura back then would have said, I haven't got time to talk to you. That's what hardworking Laura would have said. And actually, having the experience of the future for that Laura back then, I think I would say, and I would say this to everyone, it's adding 10% strategic approach to your career every week, which in the end saves you time, because you're focused on other things than just working hard all the time, and it's going to pay you back time, money, value in huge amounts. So don't think sort of at that level of just working, think more strategically about your career and yourself, and you will have the time and the money and the investment paid back in dividends, because it is such a valuable tool, a valuable system to put into place. And I think if I went back and hardworking, Laura was like, yes, great, I'm so glad you're here to help, I would just be like, do you know what? It is awesome that you're making that decision right there and then, because this is going to change the projection of your career for the rest of your life. And I that is hugely helpful. So I hope I could persuade both versions of myself back then.
Yeah, totally. And were you a parent at that time?
No.
You were not a parent at the time.
No.
Okay. So you were hardworking, not a parent. Many people weren't in certain roles in these companies, there are parents. So yeah. What would the impact be for the children once a parent comes through your, this free masterclass, experiencing working smarter, not harder, more strategic? What happens to the children as a result of who the parent becomes?
Well, I can answer that question as a parent of 2 children, and having, that particular time in my career was a particular time, but I have spent time with my children working hard. And I think for any mother, any parent who has children and has a corporate career or a proper company career that they want to progress in, there is always the balancing act of being present and at home with the children and being committed and on it, and all the politics around being in the company. And again, I think if I could have gone back to when my children were young, back, they're quite old now, and I'm not going to tell you because then I'll show my age, but if I could go back to me when I had young kids, and there were lots of pressures around that, I would say even more reason to go through this masterclass and do this because the skills and the systems and the whole mindset that you have in shifting from working hard to strategic professional is going to give you so much value to your home life and to your children, because you're going to be more present, you're going to be more engaged, you're not going to be exhausted. I remember when my kids were dinky, I'd get home and be like exhausted, and I think it really helps you think better in your whole life, because you can, it's just it's a level up of approach in your career and in your lifestyle. And I think if I could go back and tell myself that when my kids were small, I think I would hugely value it, because it takes life from a struggle professionally and personally to something that's been thought through and designed the way you want it.
Wow. Thank you so much, everyone watching, listening. ActivateMyCareerLive.com, ActivateMyCareerLive.com. Laura, thank you.
Thank you to Fernando.
And thank you for sharing everything you've learned, and so that people can have the shortcuts. I believe that most people can, do things and achieve certain things on their own, even if it takes 40 years, 5 lifetimes. And I think it pays off to invest in themselves, invest in someone that has had the opportunity to go through the pains and the blood, sweat, and tears, so that they can, like you said, reap the dividends. They invest one time, and here they invest only their time, 4 hours of their time, to learn what took you decades to learn.
Yeah.
So thank you. So awesome. Anyone listening, watching, go to ActivateMyCareerLive.com to learn with Laura. ActivateMyCareerLive.com. Laura, thank you. Till next time.
Thank you so much, Fernando, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Till next time, and everyone else.